Hi everyone, my name is Eric Schurter and I'm the product manager for the Static Site Editor group, which is part of the create stage of the DevOps lifecycle here at GitLab. I want to talk to you today a little bit about some of the great features we have planned for the 13.4 release, and I'll link this planning issue in the video description so you can learn more, ask questions, provide feedback directly in the issues. But I want to highlight a few, and I want to start with front matter. So front matter is JSON, or more often YAML formatted metadata that's included in the top of a markdown file that ends up being the data source for the static site generator. So within this block of YAML, you can define any kind of metadata that you want to pass into the page template when the page is getting generated. This is often used for the page title or the author name or publication date, but it can be used really for anything. It's very powerful and very flexible, but it also was a challenge when it came to loading the content into our WYSIWYG editor in the static site editor. So when we tried to bring the content into the WYSIWYG editor, the YAML would be parsed into regular HTML text. And we had the option to just display that, but maybe not make it editable. But since it's not really relevant to the content of the page, we made the decision pretty early on in our MVC that we were just going to strip that content away from the WYSIWYG editor and make it available only in the raw source markdown editing mode. So in 13.4, we want to take some steps to make editing a page's front matter just as visually accessible and intuitive as we have made editing the markdown content. And so what we want to do is introduce sort of settings drawer or page configuration drawer for the WYSIWYG editor. You'll be able to click and open up basically a simple form that's going to have a field for every YAML field defined in that file. And you'll be able to edit things like the title, the layout template, or anything else that's been defined in the file itself. You'll be able to edit that just like a form field and click update, and that would get saved and committed just like your markdown content. There's a lot of exciting work that we're going to do to iterate on this feature, but this is laying the groundwork for a much more flexible and configurable page editing experience, and we're very excited about this. Next, I want to talk to you about uploading images to the static site editor. And I think I mentioned this in our last milestone, 13.3. It took a little longer for us to wrap up work on our custom renderers for the static site editor, handling non-markdown content. And so this issue is getting carried over to 13.4, but we should be able to wrap it up. Right now, all that's left is being able to preview the resulting image in the WYSIWYG editor after you've uploaded it. So the good news here is that we should be able to also solve another issue that was on our backlog, which is the ability to display relative URL, or images that use relative URL paths within the static site editor, and close out both of those at the same time in 13.4. And last is a new feature that we want to add to support embedded media within the WYSIWYG editor. So we're going to add a dedicated media button. In this case, it's mostly going to be supporting YouTube videos, but you're essentially going to be able to provide a video ID, an embed URL, and we'll wrap it in an iframe and format it correctly and put it into the WYSIWYG editor for you. And you can see what that workflow would look like there. And this is really important because there's a lot of pages in the GitLab handbook that have videos embedded. And this workflow will allow you to quickly add those videos into your content in line with your markdown. And the last issue I want to talk about, which is something I don't usually talk about on these kickoff videos because it's very handbook specific, but there's an exciting new project called Frontman. It's a project that was created by a team from the Algolia documentation group. So they were also using Middleman as their static site generator for their documentation, and they ran into some performance bottlenecks, very similar to ones that we have run into at scale when we have over 1,000 pages in our handbook. And we are running into long build times and other bottlenecks like that. Frontman was designed as more or less a drop-in replacement for Middleman. It's also a Ruby-based static site generator, but it's optimized for performance. And so we've been doing a little bit of research on this. It's an early open source release, and we've been working with the Algolia team to provide some feedback and get more information. We're going to take a stab at integrating the Frontman project into our handbook, or replacing Middleman with Frontman rather, and do some benchmarking and profiling and make sure that everything's running fine. It's an opportunity for us to drastically improve the performance of our build times. We don't have a real good sense of exactly what to expect, but it's possible we see up to 500% or more improvement in build time. So it's something we're very excited to investigate. It isn't likely to wrap up in 13.4, but when it's ready, we should see on the development side, and both with local development and our pipeline build times, drop pretty significantly. So very excited about that. And there's an epic and related issues for this linked in the planning issue. So that's it for today, and I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you next month. Thanks.